I'm Nick McDaniel. He's Myron Fancher. What's up, buddy? How are you, man?
I am glad to be here once again with all of our loyal listeners, fans, and anyone that'll listen to this. The phenomenon that is Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast.
Yeah, man, it's a crazy week. I don't, dude. Let me tell you. I shared this story on the Tapped In show. If you haven't heard, I don't. Did I tell you? I told you about the car, right?
Yes.
That was just what a week. I'm glad I got my car back yesterday. Finally, that was awesome. So which means I'll be able to hit some more shows this weekend, more than I did last weekend. That's for sure.
I'll be back in town this weekend. Hopefully, we can get some shows under our belts. Got a little too much sun this weekend. Damn, sun is bad on a bald head.
You're telling me? Look at my redness.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's just from being outside for a little bit, man. But
I'm going to wear a toboggan everywhere I go now.
Or a hat, just a hat in general, block that face and everything, man, because it'll get you. It'll get you. But you know what else will get you, Myron?
What's that?
You'll get hooked on us at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. If you sign up, look, we always talk about it. Listen, if you can get just a free membership, that way you'll be set up. You get the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight. Comes out every week where we're covering the shows from the weekend before, talking about the ones that are coming up the next weekend. Of course, if you're a paying member, you get the shows early, get them a day early typically. If you're a $5 member or higher, $10 and $20 levels, you're getting those digital copies of the Patreon exclusive Tapped Out collectibles. We did mail out all of the this past months, and I'm going to try to jump on the next month's a little bit sooner, get them out earlier in the month. So if you're going to sign up, you want to get one of those, go ahead and make sure, because I think the cutoff I'm going to give a hard date of on the 1st or the 5th. You got to be paid by then to actually get yours. The Brady Booker ones.
So good. You have done so wonderful with this collectibles department, Nick.
Look, it's funny, some of the ones. I can't wait. I've been teasing some of the ones that go out there. One of my favorites I did recently, believe it or not, Eddie Honcho. I sent his out. He got mailed out. So if you catch him this weekend at one of the shows, go to his table, pick up one of those. I added the 11x17 poster size this past week.
Oh.
So you can do the 4x5s, the 8x10s, or the 11x17s. And I teased on the other show, trading cards are probably coming next. That's kind of what I want to get into next. So design those and you can get your own trading cards. I'm guinea pigging somebody, Happy Madness. I made some for them just to try out to see how they work. Hopefully they work well, and if they work for them. So check them out, by the way, in a couple weeks at Southern Honor. They'll have those trading cards there. You can pick up some. So
can't wait for that.
But look, today's special episode we're going to get into, and we kind of batted the name around because it was like it's a little complicated, I guess. So we'll clearly define it. Yes. I kind of went with 10 matches that could have ended WrestleMania but didn't. At one point it was should have, and I'm like, well, I kind of understand why some of the matches that ended it did over these. But our point was these matches could have ended WrestleMania and you'd have been happy.
Main event quality.
They were main event quality. Yeah. Basically, some of the best matches that were not main events, exactly, I guess is one way to look at it. But before we get into that, I want to ask you a couple things that, kind of come up over the last week since we recorded last. One of them was a little interesting note that WrestleMania did not break the top 10 globally on Netflix. Are you surprised by that?
Yes, I am surprised. All of our careful estimations, all of our careful planning that we sat here and prepared speculating prior to the show led me to believe that, well, damn. That's all I know. I mean, America is the market. And is Netflix going to, unless you get everything else for free from the raw deal, how much is Netflix going to keep paying if something doesn't make the top 10?
So, I think there's good and bad to be taken from this. Let me start with the bad. Okay, I'm shocked that it didn't break it at all. Now, granted, remember, anything in the U.S. is going to be under Peacock. It's not going to Netflix. So, all of the American market, that U.S. market, it ain't going to count. So you're literally at that point depending on the rest of the world. Now, if you're putting it across the board, how does it compare to other content that's on Netflix? Fair enough? So
yes.
Were there just 10 shows that got more views than WrestleMania worldwide?
Were there 10 great shows hot button topics. Maybe
Here's
maybe American wrestling is just not that popular in the rest of the world. Maybe sometimes Paul and the rest of the gang would think about starting an outreach program to make WWE wrestling more popular worldwide.
here's the good. I think they might be aware of that. Now, do I think they're surprised it wasn't in the top 10 ever at all? Yes. Why is there good? That means the growth opportunity is massive. Because look, we've talked about it in the past, Myron, where it's been real simple that have we saturated to the point of the American market? There really isn't as much room to grow percentage-wise. The growth percentage isn't near what it is across the rest of the world.
Yes.
And I think that's the good that you can take from it going, wait, so that means we can exponentially do better enough that if we can get into that top 10, that's a good measure. If WrestleMania didn't break the top 10, let's see what happens down the road. Like if, let's hypothetically say.
Oh, so we've got a threshold. This is the bar. Next year we got to be over the bar. Next year after that we got to go. I mean, WrestleMania 1 was not the same as WrestleMania 41. It's a growth issue. And it's not, I mean, Netflix is not the CW where they spend $50 million and get the number one program by far on their network. The most watched program by far on the CW is NXT, and they got it for $50 million. Netflix is not the CW. That's a whole different market. And there's a whole lot of people like my wife that sits there and watches Called the Midwife and all these other shows nonstop. It's a different market. And the two biggest markets for wrestling in the world, and from what I know, are Japan and Mexico outside of the United States. And they just moved into Mexico.
India would be a great market just because of the sheer volume of people.
Yes,
that you could pick up. No, listen, that's why they had Kali. That's why they had that's why,
yes.
But yeah, I think when you say like they're not even in it, so like what happens if how happy are they if like a SummerSlam breaks into the top 10? Oh wait, so are we getting a foothold? You got to remember the United States has such a head start on the wrestling business. Like WrestleMania is a cultural thing in the United States. There are pockets of people in, the UK, whatever, Germany, and all these other countries that travel over here that are diehards. But is it the mass quantities of people that you have in the United States? That's why I think they're not drawing it yet. They can get there. By the way, how do you get there? That's why we're seeing more house shows overseas. That's why we're seeing more pay-per-views overseas. They're building that market.
Tour. That European tour was nuts. And it didn't pay off. It filled houses.
But it's still, you have to build and grow. It's not like everybody saw they had a great show. Those fans came from everywhere to fill that house because it's a limited thing. They know it's leaving and coming back. Yeah. But you have to grow the base. And I think that's what they're like. The US is, look, for 40 something years, WrestleMania has been here.
All the people that watch wrestling on Netflix were currently watching on Peacock because that was WrestleMania. All the Americans were not watching it on Netflix. They were watching it on Peacock.
Right.
So there's your biggest segment moved away. So you're ranking, when Raw gets into the top 10 or the top 5, you've got that 2 million plus base behind it that'll watch everything.
I am curious to see if you could separate out the global and the U.S. and see how many of the total number is come. I know that it exists, by the way. I'm aware. Maybe I need to dig into that a little more and see where all those people that are watching Raw, that when Raw's in the top 10, is it the top 10 in the U.S. on your chart? Mm-hmm. It's not top 10 globally.
Yeah, I need to talk to some of the people we know at WWE and get some information, maybe a little bit more on clarification on this. But I thought it'd do better.
I agree. The other question is, you want to talk to somebody at WWE, you got to figure out who's in charge. And right now, there seems to be an issue of who's in charge.
Who owns the business? Who's a big wheel and who's a wrestling person?
In case you've been under a rock, I know, literally no pun intended. Rock was on Pat McAfee's show while we were recording last week's episode. So therefore, that's why we didn't. Because remember, I wanted to see if it was on there yet. He wasn't on there yet. I couldn't pull it up. Just curiosity. So if it sounds a little dated here, so be it. But Rock, basically, it depends on the stance you want to take. If The Rock was your favorite wrestler growing up, you're probably going to defend Rock and say, like, oh, blah, 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 make up excuses. If you don't like The Rock, you're going to turn around and go, like, Rock is an egomaniac who threw the WWE creative under the bus and basically said it was their fault and he never intended on being at WrestleMania, that he thought it was the right thing to do to walk away and let all of the light shine on Cody and on John Cena. Meanwhile, the millions and millions of Rock's fans just all assumed that he would be back at some point by WrestleMania. If Rock had no intention of coming back, he probably should have let us all know that at some point. Because he set them up. Do you agree or disagree? If you knew you weren't coming back, it probably should have been made known.
No, that was cruel and unusual.
You set them up for disappointment, right?
Yes, Nick. I waited for The Rock every episode of WWE between Elimination Chamber and Mania. I had people posting, well, The Rock is not in Belgium. Well, John Cena's over here, but The Rock's not showed up. And then you'd see a post the next day. Well, The Rock's not in Chicago or wherever they were. But I kept thinking, we're going to get him. And then it came down to the SmackDown before Raw. And I'm like, oh, thank God. The Rock's going to be back. He's going to set this up. It'll be ready to go. And nothing. And we sat there through Mania. Okay, The Rock's going to come in and figure this all out and nothing.
Because you're like, night one, and you're like, oh, wait, there's absolutely zero reason for him to be there on night one.
Yeah, because I thought he was playing Cena off as a henchman after the first bit. Cena had to to do the promos after that to make you realize it was his own deal. The Rock was just there.
But you still thought, all of that, we still thought. Again, by the way, we're the idiots and the morons who thought that. Let's start with that. But here's the thing. Now we're going to leapfrog into Dave LaGreca absolutely loses his mind, just craps all over The Rock. Rock responds back in kind and said, hey, brother, it's all a work. None of this shit that you guys believe is true. Why are you getting this emotionally invested in it? You shouldn't watch. You shouldn't even give us your money because it's not a big deal. It's all make-believe. That was a loose translation of The Rock, what he said in response, by the way. And then when he throws out the creative, it's you should join creative with Cody, John Cena, Brian, and me, and the rest of us. I mean, there's who's the head of creative, Myron?
Paul, Triple H, Levesque.
Okay, don't mention him. Okay, cool. Now, is that a response to Triple H's hour-long speech and his Hall of Fame speech? And guess who he never mentions once in the entire speech? The Rock.
See, I worry, though, about this. This is like when The Rock was wearing a New Japan t-shirt and everybody said, that means WWE is buying New Japan. Well, I didn't jump to conclusions because maybe he was just wearing a New Japan t-shirt. I mean, if there were any podcast as good as us, I might wear their shirts occasionally. But that doesn't mean we're buying them. You know what I mean? It didn't really... It was just a...
So you don't believe there's any tensions there?
There might be tensions, but I'm trying to sit out and be like...
Your buddy Vince Russo...
I need news.
Has come out, by the way, and said he believes that Triple H has less than a year left before Rock runs him off. But they haven't liked each other in decades. They haven't liked each other.
Well, Rock is higher up in the company technically, in the new company or TKO that owns the company. I just don't want this to turn into one of those like what are the Kardashians doing today? I need news. I need
All
solid
right.
news. I need
I'm gonna
somebody
give
to
you some
tell me.
news. I'm gonna give you some news. I held this out from you on purpose because I wanted your genuine reaction. So, go back to what The Rock said to Dave LaGreca. It's all a work. Every TV, every match, every promo, every interview, it's all a work. Pencil that down. That's going to be important in a minute.
Okay.
Also had another friend of mine tell me right now the WWE has figured it out. They are paying the media. They are literally have media people on their payroll. So when you think you think some things, have they literally taken working and taken it to the next level? Listen, I'm praying because Rock, I told you, has slid a lot on me from the from the DC world. Rock lost a lot of equity with me. So now we'll come back to the wrestling business.
I'm comprehending because everybody has said Uncle Dave Meltzer is on the AEW pay-per-view and he's not objective. And then you tell me that WE has media on their payroll, but it's wrestling me. No wonder you can't find a damn good wrestling story anywhere
Correct.
on the news. The news is
So
all clickbait. If there was Sportskeeda though, I'm going to be pissed because I can't
okay.
stand them.
So here's the thing. You're telling me there's tensions between Rock and Triple H. Remember Rock said something a while back about he's about telling stories that are bigger than wrestling, like in the ring, like just bigger than that. Like that was the whole part of like the bloodline and the Cody thing. It's like it's all larger stories, like it's larger than just wrestling, right? What if Myron, there's a new show coming out on Netflix. It's a documentary. What's it called? You know the name of it? It's Unreal.
Unreal.
Okay. On the trailer for that, who was the focal point talking and sitting at the top, and who would it seem like this whole show was focused around?
I haven't seen the trailer. I'm sorry.
It's Triple H. He's the head of creative. He's the COO.
But yeah.
And on the board, the whiteboard behind him, it had what was originally planned for WrestleMania. It can be made out. You can read it, by the way. You could actually see what they had written on the board. It's been put out online at this point. Plans changed. Now, nobody actually said this is exactly what was supposed to happen. These were ideas that were scribbled on a board. So what you're telling me is we got drama built on what actually happened on the road to WrestleMania, behind the scenes.
There's always been drama like that. Okay, but the problem is the people in the drama places haven't been in a part of a multi-mega national corporation are now controlling media sources.
Okay. And so you mean to tell me they're about to drop a show on Netflix about the creative process and how the sausage is made. And one of the biggest stories we're talking about is how the head of content creation and a guy that's on the board of directors, he's not the chairman of the board, he's on the board of directors, they're having beefs and issues about creative. What you think you're going to watch to find out what's going on during this time period when it releases? There's a show called Unreal that's going to be on Netflix that gives unprecedented access to the creative process.
See, that's the thing. When I saw that, I was kind of pissed about breaking kayfabe. I don't have to be Jim Cornette, but I was kind of like, they're going to break kayfabe? Just break the hell out of it?
So here, I will say this. Who? Triple H put that statement out. So a bunch of old dudes are bitching about kayfabe being dead as they proceed to tell everybody how everything worked in the wrestling business for the last 30 years.
Oh, he's right. He's 100% right.
Yeah.
Cornette will break down and tell you all the details all the backstage stuff, and then complain about kayfabe not being in existence anymore.
Correct. So here's my thing. Do you think there's going to be anybody interested in watching Unreal if they're talking about the creative process going to WrestleMania when we're telling you the two of the most powerful men in the company supposedly have tensions and creative, and you don't think, hey, Dave LaGreca was all in on promoting and pushing the Cody story, finishing the story. They used his clips in WWE of him losing his mind about it. You don't think by the way, who's his partner on the show? Who's his co-host?
It's Bubba, isn't it?
Yeah. What's he do on the side? What's his other gig?
Work for WWE.
Who's he? Yeah. Folks, you only have to believe as much as you want to believe. If you will let yourself believe, you will believe. And
so they're working us about a show that's about breaking kayfabe. They're kayfabing me about kayfabe. Well, is Triple H Shazam? Is that how that works?
Triple H and The Rock. Here's the thing. There's a smart man in the business. He said, do you know what it thinks eventually happens? The Rock and John Cena versus Cody Rhodes and Triple H at a match at SummerSlam. Because that'll be right about after the time that thing's wrapped up and we can build right into it. You paying for that one? If you gonna sign up for Netflix or Peacock if you don't have it, especially if you're an old timer, you're getting all of the best of both worlds in one match. Yeah, you know why?
I don't see why anybody of any generation wouldn't want to see that match.
Yeah, because here's the thing, folks, just to be aware, Rock versus Roman's never happening. Because Rock's not letting that match happen anywhere but WrestleMania, and apparently he announced that he'll be, next year's WrestleMania, he'll be filming the Scorsese film starting in March, so he'll be out for next year's WrestleMania.
And why would you have that match?
Because everybody wants it.
But why? But it wouldn't do any good because you'd have to bury Roman.
Or Rock.
Or you'd have to put Roman over the Rock's ego.
Yeah.
Okay?
Which he would do for his family. Yes, I do think that would happen. Problem is, if Roman thinks he only has a couple more years left, do we ever get to that point? Because what's it worth putting him over on Rock if he's walking away the next year? So we'll see. Hey, look, we're going to run out of time, so we're actually going to – this is going to be the thing. Do we actually get to the top 10 list on this episode? Last but not least, some more stuff. It's kind of come out a little bit about the AAA, WWE buying them. I think we mentioned it maybe on the last episode because it happened on the press. Yeah, we did because it was on the press conference prior to recording. Look, I've talked to a couple talents. Some who've kind of familiar with the scene there at AAA, and the answers were they're not real positive about it, believe it or not.
See, I'm looking at it from what they call a gringo position. I'm looking at it from I don't know anything about AAA. I mean, I know what AAA is. I know all the stories, but I don't know how it runs. I don't know how things go. I don't know the venues. I don't know how the shows go off.
I mean, you got to look at it. Here's the best case scenario, and I'm going to leave it at this because this is from all the people that I've talked to. Best case scenario, WWE leaves them alone, lets them run AAA because look, that's what their culture wants. They want AAA. They don't want WWE in Mexico, like on a regular. Like that's not their.
They've got They can't use that NXT Mexico thing. That would pretty much.
No, kidding aside, literally, if they change the name, I think that's the first and okay, they're killing this thing. I think that's the first sign of it's a problem. That's just my opinion. Take it for what it is. AAA has literally cultural ties. It's tied. It's got history. Leave it alone because I'm telling you, you change that name, that's step one to just falling off the cliff. 2, you got to let somebody as far as the creative who understands what they want. That fan base does not want you got to give them lucha libre. That's what they want.
Yeah.
End of discussion. Now, the best case, like I said, was leave that all alone. go in there, up to production, make smarter business decisions as far as marketing and
Yeah.
and the production.
And
Like I said,
put it in the English on American television or one of your
no,
streaming services.
no. Now you could put it on the streaming service, maybe, or some kind of, or maybe on YouTube. Who knows? Whatever they do.
So it'd get
But
exposure.
like, here's my argument: that needs to be marketed to who it's marketed to.
Yes.
Don't take something and try to market it to a new fan base in America. That's the worst decision I've ever. But like, I think where our hopes are, I think if they're smart, you're going to see Ray Phoenix, Penta, Vikingo. Like that's the faces of your company. Put them there and build around that. And occasionally, look, I was talking to somebody again who was pretty familiar with how the system works down there, and said, look, Jeff Jarrett had a hell of a heel run. Do the Miz down there. They would hate his guts. Like somebody like that, or Seth Rollins, or CM Punk, or, whatever. Like they could do drive-bys, not long, like runs, but like, Triple Mania rolls around, insert them into the mix to get a hot story. I really like the Miz one, by the way. That's one of my favorite ones.
That sounds really good to me. Now, I just hope the Rainbow Road that Conan has been saying and talking about is what we get. I hope we get the AAA program, and the only thing they did was change stuff around. They got better money for WE for production. They got, he said that they spend as much on one episode of Raw as they do on an entire year of Triple Mania production. So they're getting production, they're getting funds. He said that they were at a spot where they couldn't grow without capital. They own, they know the buildings. They know all the different things. They know the culture. They know AAA knows what their audience wants. And I think you're right. As long as they leave it as a AAA type thing with WWE's money instead of another NXT Europe, for example. If they try to turn AAA into NXT Europe, it won't be people just not watching. It will be people raising hell.
Yeah. They'll regurgitate the product you're trying to shove down their throats and just like, hey, let's be
they
smart.
Won't go. Because Americans will go and bitch about it.
Yeah.
I really believe in Mexico instead. They just won't go.
Right. Especially if you're trying to shove an American product at them.
Yeah.
That's my biggest bone to pick with that. Hopefully that's not the case. Hey, prove us wrong. We hope we're wrong on all fronts there. Look, man, like I said, we're going to zip through this. We thought we were going to have more time, but I actually knew for some reason with all those topics we would get carried away.
Yeah, we even cut topics.
yeah, we even cut a topic. You're right. So let's get into top 10 matches that could have ended WrestleMania, but didn't. But they could have, like I said.
They could have. These are matches that deserve to be main events, but they didn't get to. Based on a lot of different circumstances.
They were main event quality. They just didn't end the show. There we go. Something like that. Let's start with the obvious. So, look, and they're not in any particular order, or should we say, let's say they are. Number 10. Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 3. Listen, some people argue it's the greatest Intercontinental title match of all time, Myron.
It may be one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time, and I think it influenced wrestling a lot more than the main event ever did, except that influenced wrestling. The main event was the main event everyone had to see. The main event was, the Piper's Pit, the Bobby Heenan, the whole 9 yards, Hulk Andre at 3. How could you main event over that? But they went out there and put on one of the greatest matches of all time.
Right. And now, listen, that's obviously why it didn't main event, is because Hogan and Andre were the main event. And listen, as we've heard this debate for many, many times. What's the best match that happened at WrestleMania 3? And everybody goes, Savage and Steamboat. No, it was Andre and Hogan because they sold all the tickets. So, again, it's all perspective when how you look at these matches. But here's the argument. There's no way Hogan and Andre wasn't main eventing. We get it. But had that been your main event, I don't think anybody is unhappy with that.
No.
But there's a couple questions to ask. Is if it had, this is our what if episode. If it had, does that make the importance of matches, match quality, more of a thing sooner?
If I had a main evented, that would have sent WWE down to more of a If that match was drawing money, if that kind of match was drawing enough money to be the main event, I believe we would have seen a turn by Vince.
Yeah.
But I learned something when I was doing the research for this show. In the old days, you didn't have thumbnails. Like right now, if you go through and look at WrestleMania on Peacock, your different little tabs, they have a thumbnail for the main event. That's what they identify the pay-per-view by mostly. But if you look at the old days, they had box covers. And Hogan and Andre were the box cover. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That was the thing that identified the entire pay-per-view.
Yeah. And with each one of these, we're going to kind of have like a hot take, if you want to call it that, with it. And the hot take for this one's simple, right? Everybody remembers Hogan and Andre. That the stare down's what everybody remembers. But in hindsight, do we look back and say Savage and Steamboat made wrestling evolve? Because think about how many guys now talk about that in general. Like, that's the match that they're like, oh, I went back and watched Savage and Steamboat. It's probably also where the whole note-taking thing started, where everything had to be written down and had to be like step by step by step by step, like that match was. I'm not saying that's the best thing in the world, but I get it. So, yeah, I think Savage Steamboat clearly could have been the main event. Everybody could have been happy. Number 9, Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 38. Here's the kind of thing. I'll let you lead on this one because I know you had like how it was the start of a thing. Okay. It wasn't.
This was not the main event because they didn't even know who Seth Rollins' opponent was going to be. And it's a how do you main event over a Stone Cold comeback? How do you main event?
Okay, counterpoint. I think you could have. And I'm only asking. It's a question. I'm not. This is not me being devil. This is me questioning because I'm always curious. Everybody knew it was Cody. By the time it happened, everybody knew it was Cody, right? Because everybody was chanting it, and everybody was on board, and da-da-da-da. We knew it was Cody by the time it happened. Here's the thing we didn't know. Beforehand, we had no idea that, because if anybody says they did know, I think they're lying. We had no idea that Stone Cold Kevin Owens match was going to be as good as it was. No one thought remotely that match would last that long.
No.
And I mean, I thought we were going to get a kick-ass, Stone Cold, real short wrestling match. That's what I thought we were getting. That's my point of why saying this could have. Because you could have ended night one with Cody Rhodes' great debut with the company and the music playing or whatever. Because anybody who, like I said, Austin, they over-delivered, by the way.
Yeah. Well, so KO can work that style of match, almost better than anyone out there right now. I do think that, but do you reward Cody for leaving the company by bringing him back and giving him a main event?
If your plans were to put him on the trajectory that they have, I think so. Because if you put him on last, I think immediately he's out. He's off to the races, and we don't spend the next year Cody. Because think about this. 2 years later, he's the man. If he's introduced on this first WrestleMania as the man who closed night one, big thing, beat Seth Rollins, is it the next year? It's only 1 year before you make him the man instead of 2.
I think you needed to make him the man over the 2-year period. You needed to give him a story. You needed to make him finish it. And then it was a captivating story. I don't believe the entire Cody Rhodes run that we've gotten post his return would have happened if we'd have popped it on him right away. I believe that would have been waste. I believe we could get more out of it. We needed this time because to get where he is now. How many WrestleManias? The last 2 WrestleManias he's main evented. 3 he's main evented. Okay. Yeah, why did you need to rush that?
Okay, here's the thing. Had we done this, he's still main eventing 3. Because the first one he loses to Roman, he beats Roman, and then he loses to John Cena. He's lost 2 of the 3, by the way. It's not like he won. My argument would have been he could beat Roman the first one, not the second one. And then you get, because you're talking about getting more out of him. You get more out of him if he's the champion a year sooner than you do the next year. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. All we're saying, the hot take, Cody Rhodes' his career started 1 notch lower than it should have because the WWE wanted that Austin nostalgia pop to be the last thing on that night.
Well, they knew that would work. They didn't know how it was going to work when Cody Rhodes came down the ring as a mystery opponent. They didn't know. He had left. This was his chance, his surprise chance. They knew what to get. They knew what they were getting with Austin, and I'm not talking about match quality. I'm talking about the attention it would draw being Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kevin Owens. It was not a 4-wheeler ride, but it was a good deal.
Nostalgia doesn't always work. Let's look at John Cena, Cody Rhodes there. It can, could, should, just doesn't always. But let's go to number 8, which we're nostalgia 100% sold. Oh, God. Ric Flair versus Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 24. Obviously, this is the great big send off for Ric Flair. Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania himself. They did the whole. Look, it was a long story of hey, he wants Shawn to be his opponent. Da 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 da. Look, there's a bunch of other things that came out after this fact.
This is the old Yeller match.
Yeah, it's 100% what it is.
Yeah.
It did not main event. We got Edge versus Undertaker. But look, I got it. That the match makes sense. We get it. Titles are involved. Because we pick and choose when the title has to go on last. Just saying. They just did one where a triple threat ended, not the title match. How do you not say maybe Bianca and not sorry Bianca? How do we say some of those women's matches that they opened WrestleMania with shouldn't have gone on as the main event? That triple threat they had could have.
Storyline was weak on that one, but the
Jey Uso and Gunther for the world title didn't end it.
We had just an absolute plethora of matches we could have ended it with on this year's WrestleMania.
So the question is, if Ric Flair's retirement match does end this show, here's the blunt truth of it. It kind of already is the thing we remember most about this pay-per-view back in the day.
Edge versus Undertaker. Do you really remember that?
That's my point. Imagine if this thing ends the show and the end of WrestleMania is, Ric Flair standing in the ring, waving, after he's lost his last match. And the next time we see him is on Raw the next night. He gets the big send-off. Let's cut it right there because we don't want to get into all the crap that's happened since then as far as coming back, and he was in TNA, and then he had his last match. That's the storybook ending you want. Literally, the last match, when Mania fades to black, it's Ric Flair in the ring crying and waving or something like that. That's a great way.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way.
Better than what we got, So, like I said, if Flair's retirement's not the final image, then WWE messed it up, which I 100%. I think this is one I 100% would have said the old rules that I wanted to do this list by would have applied. This one should have ended the show. Like in my argument, that should have ended the show.
And the weird thing is, we're going to take the main event. Undertaker continues the streak from this pay-per-view, and then on 28, that was the main event. And we didn't. That was not the main event. Sorry, that was a match on the card, and why is that not the main event? Triple H.
Hell in a Cell, end of an era. Shawn Michaels is the referee. Literally, this was kind of the big hurrah. He had retired Shawn, up to that point. Triple H, it's the big group. They're it's the end of the era. Them, they go out there, they beat the hell out of each other. But
now, go ahead.
They chose to go a different route for the main event.
This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Nick. The Cena Rock match, one-in-a-lifetime opportunity. That's what it was billed at, okay? It was billed as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity until
we'll get back to that. Yeah, until the next one, right. No matter what, this match should have ended. Again, they're saying this should have ended it. The scene where they walk up the ramp and they're hugging each other, you know what I mean? That's the moment, dude. It's kind of very similar to the last one. It is what it is. But hey, we're gonna speed up a little bit. The end of an era match should have ended the era, but yet it served as the appetizer to John Cena and Rock specifically at this point in my life. 30-minute ego trip where they were going to be the story not only for this year but for the next year. Because Rock is only involved in the greatest angles in pro wrestling history. Number 6, The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. Now I'm about to be a hypocrite and tell you something different. The Rock versus Hogan at WrestleMania 18, Icon versus Icon. What I arguably say is one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time.
We have talked about this match, if not on the show together and with other people, I think more about any other match. Because a lot of people have the same opinion. This is one of the greatest matches of all time. Cody Rhodes even says it's one of the greatest matches of all time, or the greatest match of all time. Everybody puts this over as something so special, but it was not the main event.
Nope. Everybody a lot of times forgets that Chris Jericho and Triple H went on there to absolute because the house was burnt. They were literally spent by the time this match happened. They had so invested into the Rock Hogan match. I don't think they had anything left. By the way, this was the era where they were starting to get long, and they were, a lot of that kind of stuff. So
go long matches. You get the whole concept where the Hogan Rock match was like running a marathon and then sitting down and trying to watch something else as a fan. You were on your feet this whole time if you were there. If you were at home, you were all excited. So who knows what this could have been? Who knows? But then again, we keep seeing a thread we're going to see through the next few choices. Triple H was in the main event.
Yeah, I mean, it's Triple H is just, after this, is he not the guy? Like we were sitting here looking at some of these, and it's just
he was main event and everything. And this was the last mania they did as WWE or WWF. Sorry, after 18, everything was WWE, and we don't even think about that, but that's been a long time ago since they changed the name.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Do you remember when it happened? We were all like, and now it's like we don't even think about it.
What it is.
It is what it is. Yeah. So
this happened before my child was born, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 2002. So my daughter was born in 2003. This was the last WrestleMania under and she can buy beer. Okay.
Yeah.
The kid born after WWE can buy beer.
Hot take of this, by the way. Hey, if the show ends with this match, then they're all happy. It's literally the passing of the torch, and they are the. By the way, they were the main event. That's the hot take for this. With Triple H and Chris Jericho just wrestled after the main event. That's all. They were a dark match after that, apparently. Number 5, Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks, WrestleMania 32. Literally crowning the first champion. How? We were in the peak of this women's evolution. We were in the peak of all, we're crowning our first, getting rid of the Divas title. It's all this. Well, what are we doing, Myron? What are we doing?
It's amazing women's wrestling was able to continue at the pace it is now after getting stuck back after this. Now, they went on to main event. Don't get me wrong. Substitute Ronda Rousey for Sasha Banks. But they went on to main event WrestleMania. But how far did it have to go before they did? Think about it. How far did they have to go before and this match, as great as it was, I think it set things back. I think it set things back for women's wrestling.
Because had they made the jump here, it fast tracks it, right? Like they kind of are like, no, they saw him as main event here. Mm-hmm. It's sooner, it's later. And then, but of course we get Roman and Triple H instead. Shocking. We're going to see the theme there at that point. But hey,
I would have liked to have seen this main event.
Yeah.
I really
a hot take for this one. They waited 3 extra years to let the women finally main event WrestleMania. But it's probably because they chickened out here. This was the moment to let it happen, and I think they got scared. I don't think they thought women would be, they could sell the final spot, the main event. And they were wrong. Number 4, CM Punk versus The Undertaker. This has so deep Undertaker. The underlying stuff here is so good. WrestleMania 29, Punk Undertaker. This was like, look, the streak's on the line here at this point. We're in full streak,
Yep.
Whatever.
This is the last match of the streak. This was the last match of Undertaker's streak.
The match is good. There's everything about this was good.
Last
the
win.
story. But let me ask you, who main evented this WrestleMania again?
Oh, it was the second in a lifetime
opportunity
to see Rock and Cena. And it still sold and got the main event.
Here's the thing. We're at 42, going on 40, whatever, at 43, and we're still talking about Rock and Cena.
Shit, we opened the show with Rock and Cena, didn't we? Or
half of what we talked about in the opening was about, exactly. Here's the thing. We know why it didn't, but if it does, this is a what-if scenario that is really, really crazy. I'm not saying this happens. It's just a question. Punk essentially leaves because this match doesn't, I think it's the kindling to the fire that is, they don't see me as the main event guy. I'm in there with The Undertaker, with the streak, and they still aren't main eventing it, and us. We should have.
Mm-hmm.
If they let him do this, does he not leave?
How different would the streak have been if he'd got to end it instead of Lesnar? I mean, he could have stayed with WWE forever. Lesnar, well, hell, it probably would never made Lesnar. But would you have been more comfortable with Punk ending it than Lesnar?
Questionable. Like, some would argue you probably get more out of it. Like Brock, like, how much did you gain out of it? Punk gains more out of beating and ending the streak than Brock does, probably. Maybe, because I think Brock's Brock. By the time he beats the streak, he's Brock, right?
Yeah.
So that could be the take. The hot take being CM Punk's never going to be the guy the moment they pick that, when they pick Cena and Rock, that was clearly like, here's the thing. You just did it last year. Like, why is it?
Yes.
I get it because it's Cena and The Rock. I understand. But, no, that one's by this point in the streak, he should have been in the main event pretty much every year.
Well, it was so much drama. It was so much. The streak match was so much drama. That was the match I always was focused on there towards the end of the streak.
There were people when we were doing the this or that's, one of the questions, would you rather be in a title match or a title match for the streak, or a match for to end the streak? And a lot of people were like, I can win the title. You can only when you can end the streak, you can only end it once. Like, you would have that forever. So
Lesnar's always remembered as the guy that won the streak. I don't remember anything else about that WrestleMania.
Correct. You would if you saw it, but you get anyway.
Yeah.
Number 3, Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle, WrestleMania 21. This was the match that, hands down, when this match was put on the card, everyone should have known this should have closed. Now, I get it. Batista, Triple H, title match, coronation of the new guy. I get all of that. But, dude, Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels.
This is like WrestleMania. This is our whole WrestleMania 3 vibe, Steamboat Savage. Yeah. This was the great match between the two most skilled wrestlers of the time. And we got it as a undercard.
Yeah. Hot take on this one, Myron. Pure wrestling will never headline WrestleMania, and Shawn versus Kurt Angle is the absolute proof of it, because they didn't even trust two of the absolute best wrestlers of all times to do it.
No, agreed.
So, number 2, Taker and Shawn, WrestleMania 25. It was the Streak versus Mr. WrestleMania, Light versus Darkness. It's got the great entrances, all the kind of stuff. And by the way, here's Nick's case to be made. Might be the best wrestling match in WrestleMania history.
From what I said and what I've read about this was one of the best matches. And watching the match back, this is an early. I don't even know how to really phrase this. This match, Batista was that. I don't know. This was Orton. Hell, this is not Batista. This was Orton.
Orton and Triple H, yeah.
Once again, Triple H.
Myron, Mr. WrestleMania versus The Streak, and that can't main event. we got to go with Orton and Triple H. I get it. Everybody, hey, title matters. I understand that. By this point, I don't know that it does. I don't know that it got bigger till the next year. Taker and Shawn, right? Like, I get it. But at the time, it just was one of the best matches to, like, I've heard both of those guys say in whatever you want to call it. I ain't saying I've ever worked a perfect match, but if I had one to say that it's this one. If those guys are saying that, come on. What are we talking about? Hot take, Triple H versus Orton wasn't just a bad main event. It was an act of sabotage. It's one of the greatest WrestleMania matches ever. They literally put that on afterwards. God forbid. I'll help them. Whatever. Number one, shocking. I think a lot of people are going to be stunned by this take. Bret Hart versus Owen Hart at WrestleMania 10. The brother versus brother, all of those things. Like, here's the argument to be made. When we talk about it, could be if WrestleMania 25 could be one of the greatest matches of all times, this might be the competitor for it.
1994, and this was 1994. This was Jack Tunney. Okay, Jack Tunney was responsible for getting this match planned out. This was nuts. This was back in the Yokozuna and the aircraft carrier bit with Lex. This was when they were really trying to get their best out of Lex. Yeah. They had to. This had to go on first, though, because Bret was going to have two matches if he won this match. The final main event for the title versus Yokozuna, with Burt Reynolds as your guest ring announcer, and who was the other one? Jenny Garth as the guest timekeeper, and Roddy Piper is the referee for that main event. You had to put that on last. But this went on first?
Well, yeah, because of what they did with he defeated Yoko at the end, so they kind of had to split them apart. Here's the thing. How about we just do Bret? They wanted the happy ending of Yoko dropping the belt to Bret at the end. I don't know, man. Like, can we not do that like next month or something? And because if this match goes on last, Owen's a bigger star from the jump.
Much bigger star. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but no, we just wanted to, hey, champions got to hold up, happy ending. Everybody go home happy. This was that period when that was kind of a thing, folks. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I would have clearly said, if you've never seen this match, by the way, go check it out. It arguably is one of the best matches I've ever in a WrestleMania. And like I said, hot take, WrestleMania 10 should have ended with the family torn apart, not the Disney movie that we got ending with Bret defeating Yoko.
Well, we got Owen looking at Bret from the crowd at the end. We got a storyline that went on after this, your post WrestleMania storyline. But it just wasn't. Once again, I don't think good wrestling sells. Do you think Yokozuna?
But here's my thing, though. Hold on. Here's the only argument I would push back a little bit. There was so much story in there with the family and the jealous brother, and there was story there. It wasn't that it was just great wrestling. It was really, that's just my take on it.
But the main story they wanted was the Yokozuna bit. And Yokozuna was not as good a wrestler as Owen Hart was. Okay?
No.
Let's be serious. But it was the time period where that was the big thing. This is WrestleMania 10. This is the time period when we're 7 years out of WrestleMania 3, where Hogan and Andre main evented. We're still in the spectacle era, folks. Battleships, Jenny Garth, Burt Reynolds. 90s.
I get why they wanted the happy ending, but my point being is it could have ended with a broken, torn apart family, and what's going to happen next, and then we lead off into the. But they like their bow ties on it
in the 90s.
Yeah. So, couple honorary mentions. Look, I think it's a highly underrated the cash in by Seth Rollins.
Yeah,
there's one.
I agree.
Edge versus Foley. That
terrific.
100%. That flaming table spot. I mean, awesome. I get it, because here's the thing: when you do something like that, it's hard to follow. That's kind of, at the end of the day, I think that's kind of it. hey, let us know what you think, guys. If there's any matches you would add to the list, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Man, we greatly appreciate it. Did we miss any? Let us know if we missed any.
This is going to continue. This is like a show that is a show. We'll just put one other match in. People are going to be talking 10 years from now. People are going to be talking about why the women's triple threat didn't main event, because everyone said after that match, well, how do they follow that? How do they follow that? And this is the kind of thing.
Yeah. So again, tappedoutpod@gmail.com. Share your thoughts, share your opinions. If you're watching on Patreon, patreon.com/tappedoutpod, put them in the comments. We'll take those as well. Just put who's your choices and who did we get wrong, who did we get right. We're all about that. Patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Of course, we always tell you, if you're a free member and you're watching the show, you get the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight as well. But also $5 level, you're going to get the shows early, a full day early, typically. And with the $10 and $25 levels, you're going to get the exclusive digital products from the Tapped Out Collectibles. And look, I've decided over time, I had so many volunteers over the last couple of weeks of people saying like, hey, I'll do one. I'm not gonna like advertise it. There's just gonna be random months.
Be a surprise.
I'm gonna throw an extra one in there, print some extra, so you might get two instead. And that one, by the way, the $25 level that gets the 8x10, those won't even be available as the digital copy. They'll just be extra ones if I get them printed and signed. I'm gonna just throw them in there and get them mailed out to you as well. So we'll go with that way. So, and I'll just randomly choose some months for that. Well, Myron, I always love the top 10 shows. I always like doing those. Anything else or anything?
No, I'm looking forward to getting to some indie shows this weekend. I'm looking forward to NXT tonight. We're recording on Tuesdays. Tuesday's my favorite TV night of the week now with Andor and NXT. Can't wait for a better evening, man. Can't wait for a better weekend. Let's go, folks. Get out there.
Hey, yeah, come check us out. If you see us at a show, shake our hand, say hello. We'd appreciate that. That's awesome. But again, hey, next week, make sure you're also, by the way, checking out the Tap 10 show if you're an indie fan, because we're covering all those shows.
Mm-hmm.
And you really a lot you want to hear about Action Wrestling. A lot of stuff went down this past week at Action Wrestling. So check out the Tap 10 show.
So I've got to listen to that show to get it in.
Yeah, it's a rough one. Well, man, if that's all you've got, brother, what's the old saying? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.